All right, we do welcome a major contributor to the Coptic organization. He's wrote the book Choose to Believe, as you delve into your belief system and changing your focus on your life for it to be better. And now it's to look into your harmonies within yourself in the midst of harmonic prayer is tonight's workshop. It's our once-a-month feature with a workshop here at the Coptic Center Sunday evening experience, and we welcome Alan Tutt, thanking him for his contributions on the videography that he does on these Sunday nights that are posted on the Coptic Center website through YouTube, our YouTube page. Feel free to look at well over 80 videos that are on file right now at thecopticcenter.org and the YouTube link that we have there. So once again, we do have Alan Tutt. Harmonic Prayer is the workshop tonight, and more on that with him right now. Please welcome Alan.
Thanks a lot. Okay. I am so happy to see everyone here. This is going to be a magical time for all of us, myself included. As you may or may not know, tonight's presentation is a preview of the full workshop that I'll be doing this coming Saturday, June 30th, here at the Coptic Center, starting at 1 o'clock, going till about 6. And basically, all I'm really saying is if you like tonight's presentation, you'll definitely want to come back Saturday because we'll be going into a lot more depth there than what I have time for today. But before I begin, I want to make sure that everyone here understands where the information came from that I'm sharing with you tonight and what makes this material as powerful as it is. Way back in ancient times, when I was just a kid, I became fascinated with the ideas of magic and miracles. And so I began what has become a lifelong quest to figure out what I need to do to perform those magic and miracles in my own life. I started with the Christian Bible, and there's a lot of great information there, especially on the power of faith. But I knew too many people who prayed and prayed and prayed without getting any results whatsoever. So I had my doubts. From there, I moved on to studying mysticism and the occult, and that journey took me many different places, but never brought me any closer to the magic and miracles I was looking for. The same was true when I studied shamanism and other old religions. Lots of great possibilities, but I never got any real tangible results. My first real tangible results came one winter morning when I stumbled into a bookstore after having walked the streets all night. This is when I had hit bottom and became homeless. Some of you already know the story. As I stood there in the bookstore, hang on, I skipped one thing. That morning, I picked up a book by Joseph Murphy called The Miracle of Mind Dynamics. The cover of that book promised a simple 4-step, 60-second action plan, which is very similar to the process we'll be talking about here tonight. Again, some of you already know the story. As I stood there in the bookstore following those 4 steps, I imagined that I had enough money to rent a place to stay and get the food that I needed. I felt a sense of joy welling up within me as I imagined the cash in hand. By the end of the day, I had received enough money to rent a room for a week and get a first decent meal I'd had in days, and a little left over. Wow. The next day, I went back to the bookstore, bought that book, and a few others. What I had discovered was a process called affirmative prayer as taught by the New Thought movement. What most people don't know, though, the follow-up to that story, is that the week after, I tried to duplicate that experience, but couldn't. I did experience a few other magical results, but I didn't manifest any more money. Even so, I knew I was onto something. And so I started another process of experimentation that took a number of years, in which I was testing out a lot of different ideas, a lot of different variations on those ideas, a lot of different combinations and permutations of those ideas, all trying to figure out what happened in that bookstore and how could I duplicate that experience anytime I wanted. Since that time, I have been able to do a number of things which fall into the magic and miracles category. The flyer that I set up for tonight's workshop and the workshop next week list a few of those things that I've been able to accomplish that can only be described in this way because there's no physical direct involvement on many of those. Try not to blow out your ears on that. So, what I have learned in that experience is a lot of what I'm going to be sharing with you here tonight. The experience that I've had in that process has shown me that there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about prayer. Some people claim that any form of prayer works as long as you're sincere. That is absolutely false, because I know for a fact that shaking your fist at the sky, shouting curses and threats about what you're going to do if you don't get what you want, is definitely not an effective form of prayer. Yes, I have tried just about everything. When you boil it all down, what makes prayer work is based on 3 key principles. Those principles actually have a mathematical formula to describe a relationship between the 3 of them, which are faith, focus, and feeling. Now, you could call them belief, willpower, and emotion, but I like alliteration. And while I could use the words connection, control, and confidence, I prefer to say faith, focus, and feeling. So, I think it's time for me to pull out the whiteboard because I'm going to show you that formula that I was talking about. So, actually, to make sure that everyone can see, I think I guess that's probably as good as anything. Okay, so here's how it all lays out. Your prayer power is determined by the vividness of your focus multiplied by the intensity of your feeling, and all this is raised to the power of your faith. With this formula, you can see that you need both focus and feeling working together, but neither one of them is nearly as important as having faith that what you're praying for will actually manifest. Don't worry if this doesn't make sense to you. It really doesn't have to. The main thing to remember is that you need all 3 of those to make prayer work, and the most important one is faith. So, while knowing this is all well and good, what's even more important is knowing how to make it work for you. What can we actually do with it? So, the harmonic prayer process that is kind of the feature of tonight that I've been teaching lately can be described in either 3 steps or 5. The process is the same either way. The only real difference is how much detail you want to have in the description. So, the process, the 3-step version, is relax, imagine, and trust. You want to relax as deeply as you can. You want to imagine what you want to have manifested in as much detail as you can. And you want to trust that the process has worked so that you can expect to see results soon. I've taught this process to my email subscribers for a couple of years, and people do get results with it. However, lately I've been including a couple more steps because I feel it helps improve the flow. So the 5-step version starts out relax, with a 2nd step of indulge. Then we go to imagine, trust, and the 5th and final is act. The point of relaxing is to shift your consciousness away from the physical and more towards the spiritual level. This helps you make a connection with the divine essence of the universe, which is where the power of prayer comes from. Okay. We can intensify that connection by indulging our emotions with the emotions of love, gratitude, joy, and even sensual pleasures, such as what you feel when you're eating a delicious dessert, or sitting by a fire in the winter, or sitting on the beach in the summer. When we indulge our emotions, we shift ourselves into a harmonic resonance with the divine. And that makes a stronger connection. And that stronger connection helps us become better and get better results with our prayers. So the first two steps are essentially the feeling aspect of the formula I just gave you. The imagine step, when we imagine the things that we would like to have manifest in as much detail as we can, as if they're happening right here, right now, serves to communicate our prayer to the divine, which then directs universal forces to manifest it for us. This is where most people have it completely wrong about prayer. Prayer is not about words. Words are fine to help you define what you're asking for, but it's what happens inside your imagination that gets communicated to the divine. Okay, I'm trying to remember all the points that I'm trying to make here. Okay, I've got a question already.
Pardon me. Is faith an emotion?
Faith can be described as an emotion, but I am talking about it as a separate thing here. It can be. You can call it an emotion. I'm listing it as something a little bit different. That's kind of in the trust step down there with the process.
Would you call that faith then a level of consciousness more than a feeling?
It could be. It could be. My own personal idea is that faith is a set of beliefs, which is a thought pattern or a thought construct within your mind. So I see it a little bit differently, but yes, it can be described as a feeling or a level of consciousness. So those are both completely valid. So yeah, when we are praying, we are connecting with the divine essence of the universe, which then does the manifestation for us. Okay, I've got myself lost. I'm going to check my notes real quick. I'm doing something a little bit different with this talk. I scripted it out and then I memorized the script. So I'm pretty much right on track. Let's see here. Okay, we are there and there. Okay, there we go. Okay. So I was just talking about how words are not the essence of prayer. What prayer is based on is what happens within our mind when we are connected with the divine essence. And the fact that it's what happens inside of our imagination that gets communicated to the divine rather than our words. This is why some people can use the most positive words possible and still end up with a negative result. The reverse is also true. It's possible to get a positive result from prayer, even if you're using negative words, as long as what's happening inside your imagination correlates with what you actually want to have manifested. Because it's what happens inside your imagination that determines the direction of the manifestation rather than the words that you use to describe it. The words are for your own use. They don't get communicated to the divine. Okay, so hopefully we've got that part. Essentially, the first three steps that I've just described here, they can be done in whatever time frame you have available. Remember the 60-second action plan that I've mentioned earlier that gave me my first tangible results? I've seen results from prayers that took less than 10 seconds. Relaxing, bringing up a positive feeling, and imagining what you want can be done relatively quickly. But it's also important to remember, we're not in a race. It doesn't have to be done quickly. You can take as much time as you want with all of these steps and enjoy the process. Because that is part of the indulge step. Enjoy the process. You really want to be feeling good during your prayers, because that helps you stay in harmonic resonance with that divine essence of the universe. Without that harmonic resonance, you're not as well connected as you could be. So you want to be feeling good through this process. If it means taking a little bit extra time, feel free to do that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just because it can be done quickly doesn't mean it has to be done quickly. Okay, and I've gotten off again. So, okay, yeah. And so, the other important thing to remember here is that you're not directly manifesting anything yourself in prayer. So there's no need to use a lot of mental force here. This is one of those mistakes I kept making over and over and over again. I thought that there was some physical connection between what was happening in my mind and the physical world that I was trying to change. And so I kept trying to use a lot of force, and that actually cuts me off from that divine essence. So you don't want to use a lot of mental force in your prayers, because that can actually backfire from you. The other thing to, let's see here. Yeah. The other thing that goes along with this is that the only job you have in the prayer process is to communicate a clear image of what you want, and that's it. The divine essence of the universe takes care of the rest for you. So, we pretty much covered the first 3 steps. The trust step, this is actually the most important one. In fact, you could say that the only reason for the first 3 steps is to help you increase your faith to a point where you attract the thing that you would like to manifest. In the workshop on Saturday, I'm going to have a lot more time to give you a lot of different suggestions on how you can build up that level of trust to a point where it's really easy to believe that what you're praying for is going to be there, and it's going to be there really quickly. Right now, the best advice I can give that's relatively short, to trust that the process is working for you and that you're going to see positive results soon. The best thing I can say is to simply choose to believe that it's going to be there. Choose to believe that the process is working for you. Choose to believe that it has already worked for you, and the only thing you need to do is find the manifestation. That was part of a story that I've told here a number of times. When Linda and I got together, when I made my prayers to describe what I wanted in a relationship, I was at that point looking, okay, she's going to be here somewhere. Where is she? Is she going to be in this building? Is she going to be in that building? Am I going to meet her around this corner? I believed, I trusted that it had already worked. The prayers were already done. I was just looking for her at that point. And that's the level of trust you want in the prayer process. Okay, I've definitely gone way off here again. Okay. Okay, the other thing that I was wanting to say about that is that choosing to believe in something, the mechanics of it is a lot like memorizing some new bit of information. Whatever works for you in trying to remember some fact or figure is probably also going to work for you in the process of choosing to believe and choosing to trust in the process. Again, we'll go into a lot more detail on this on Saturday. So, yes, question.
Sorry to throw you off again, probably.
Actually, I've got it in my head, so I'm good.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about that first visit to the bookstore and what it was that actually happened to you? That was, because it was the first time,
Right,
wasn't it?
right. There were a few variables that happened there that took me a long time to recognize. The fact that I had been up all night long. I was in an altered state of consciousness. I was not in the beta state of mind. I was definitely in alpha and maybe even down into theta. And that's why I'm recommending that we spend time to really relax first so that we get ourselves out of the beta state into the alpha state. That's one of the big differences. Another big difference that happened to me then that took me a long time to recognize is because I was so tired. Actually, I was able to recognize this early on. I just didn't know how to deal with it. But because I was so tired, I didn't have the mental energy to analyze the process that I was given. I didn't have the mental energy to say, but wait a minute, what about this? What about that? I just accepted and went with it. So I trusted a lot better there because I didn't have the energy to fight against it. So, and that's why the trust step is so important. And really, it can be described as it's all about the trust. It's whatever helps you get to that point. And what I have found, and the reason why I recommend this process, is that by relaxing as deeply as you can, bringing yourself into alpha and even theta if possible, and then indulging in those positive emotions to create that positive inner environment, imagining what you want in intense detail, all of these work together as a sort of self-hypnosis process to shift your beliefs so that you believe that what you're asking for has already happened. And so at that point, it's easy to trust. So that's why I'm teaching this process the way that I'm teaching it. So yes, great question, great question. Which, going back, the last step here is our action step. It's really a continuation of the trust step, but focus on a physical level. And that's why I'm saying the 3-step and the 5-step versions are really the same thing. It's just in trust, you want to trust on a mental level, but you also want to trust on a physical level as well. You want to say, okay, this is happening. This is going to be there. Now what do I actually do? And so you want to take action and start moving forward, believing and trusting that what you want will be there when necessary. And the bottom line truth is that if we hesitate to take action, that means we don't really trust the process. And so by taking action, we are informing our deeper levels of consciousness. Yes, I do trust this. I do believe that this is going to happen, and I'm waiting for it. I'm making myself ready for it now.
It sounds like maybe we should go without some sleep one night.
You know, I tried that again. I did try that, and it can work, but it's not very steady. It's not really a stable
It
thing.
must be some marvelous thing that happens when you get to your theta level.
Yeah. The theta level. The way I describe it is that the different brain waves, if you understand what the brainwave frequencies are, you've got beta as your normal outer conscious level, then you go into a daydream or a meditation and you're down into alpha, and you go down further and then you're in theta, which is kind of where hypnosis takes place. And if you go further than that, then you're down into the delta level, which is where you're actually asleep. The way I think of it, now it may not necessarily be true this way, but I think that God is at that 0 level. And the lower we go, the closer we are to God. And the closer we are to the divine, the better our prayers work. So that's the way that I think of that. Another question, yes?
This comes to my mind. Isn't it also that when we make a decision, let's say, okay, whatever it is, I want to have this car, I want to have, I need to have this happening in my life. You make a decision, it's like almost like you imagine it, but you also say, you know, this has to happen for me. Isn't that something that also takes place with imagining things, like, you know, you decide for yourself, this is the direction?
There definitely is at least an unspoken decision behind all of this, or else you wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
I mean, basically, if I'm going to pick something up, I've somehow decided to pick it up.
Yeah.
So there is a decision behind all this. And what I was just saying about choosing to trust the process, choosing to believe in the process, sometimes it can be just a matter of making that decision, to choosing to trust it. And choosing that, yes, this is going to manifest. And that's why I was saying that I've seen results from prayers that were less than 10 seconds, because it was essentially just a decision. Okay, we're going to have this. So that's all possible, yes.
So is this, you have the last thing is act and indulge. Is there something you do when you do that indulge step? Is that an action or a, you know?
It's more inner. But the thing that we're also going to be doing more on Saturday, I wasn't really going to cover it too much today, is that one of the ways that we can train ourselves is to actually do a physical indulgence, really focus our minds in that experience and memorize that experience in every detail, so that when we do it on a mental level, more detail comes into that mental imaginary experience. And so we're able to bring more of that indulgence into that inner work. So yes, you can do it on a physical level and then bring that into the mental level to make it even more powerful.
But what you indulge in, how does it relate to your what you're focusing on, what you're...
As far as the objective that you want to produce from the prayer, it doesn't have to relate at all, because at the opening stage, it's really just a matter of making contact with the divine. And so anything positive will help you make that connection. So it doesn't have to relate at all, although it could and probably would be better if it
You're
did.
dancing at concerts.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, dancing is something that I'm going to be mentioning later. Yes, Alex.
Yeah, one thing that I'm aware of is our deep subconscious belief. Like, for instance, when Linda gave her wonderful talk on money last week, and she was open and honest and vulnerable by saying, if I thought of, I'd like to have $1 million, but I don't really believe that. This is what I was hearing. Then how do you deal with that deep belief?
Okay. Actually, that's one of the reasons why I've shifted away from a lot of what I was teaching in the Choose to Believe material into the Harmonic Prayer material, because as far as, again, going into that self-hypnotic state, by putting yourself down into your deep inner level and opening yourself up and imagining in very, very rich detail, you are shifting all of those beliefs to more accept the thing that you actually want to have manifest. So it's something that can be developed depending on how much of a difference it is from where you are now. I mean, something that's just an easy step is going to happen really quickly, but something that's a stretch might take you a few days, a few weeks, a few months, maybe even a few years, depending on how big of a stretch it is for you. Basically, what I'm sharing here is what I've learned to be the quickest way, but it's not always instant.
Yeah.
Especially if there is something that's a big stretch for you. Okay, I saw another hand back here.
I would be willing to say that if you imagine with real strong faith and intent, you wanted $1 million, and you accepted that and you trusted that.
Mm-hmm.
If you were given $900,000, I'd say that was a good prayer.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, it wasn't $1 million, but it was pretty darn close, right?
Right, yeah. In fact, one of the examples that I could talk about a little bit, last September, I started another process of, okay, the whole thing about the money, it's like, well, that's always been my sticking point too for a lot of years, but I'm starting to decide that maybe I want to make another big demonstration again so that I have something to talk about in my marketing when I'm online selling all this stuff. Because being able to show that, hey, this stuff has been working for me is a good thing to do, especially when you're sharing information. So I did spend some time going down, imagining the rich, wealthy experience, the big houses, all that kind of stuff. And what ended up happening is that my mom decided around about that time frame that rather than wait until the end before giving me my inheritance, she was going to give it to me early. And so what that ended up being was an Edward Jones account that she had set aside that was going to be for me. It wasn't $1 million or anything, but it was 20,000. And so I figured, well, that's definitely one of the things that I was thinking about was investment accounts. So it was at least a partial result of those prayers that I was making at that time. Now, the other thing that I want to add into that story, because on one level, it sounds like, okay, I took something away from her in that prayer. But what ended up happening is that within a couple of months after that, she found out that she qualified for some government program that was happening in her area, Southern Illinois, where they were fixing up houses for people who fit into certain categories, age, income, that kind of stuff. And so she ended up getting $30,000 worth of home repairs for absolutely free. So she gave away $20,000, but she got $30,000 in other benefits. So it worked out pretty good for all of us.
I'm just hoping you can clarify. Are you saying that it's actually easier to believe and easier to make that stretch from where you are into what you're becoming or what you're intending to experience more of when you're in those other states of consciousness, the alpha, the delta, the theta?
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Yes, definitely. Because when we're in beta, there's a lot more, well, resistance to new ideas. When we're in the alpha level, when we're in theta level, the inner mind has been shown to be very accepting of new ideas. I mean, that's where a lot of hypnosis shows get their thing about well, okay, that's getting into a lot of different things. But basically, hypnosis has been proven to be very effective at helping people change their beliefs. And that's essentially what we're doing here, is that we're hypnotizing ourselves to believe that what we want to have manifested can and will happen. So that's essentially what we're doing, bottom line. Okay, so, and pretty much that is everything that we're up to here. So, let me go ahead and see if there's any other questions, because the next step is to walk you through an experience of this. Are there any other questions? Okay, so let's go ahead and do a sample session of this. And really, the main reason I really want to do this now is to help you understand the process that we've been talking about. It's one thing to hear or read about a process. It's something very different to actually do it. So let's go ahead and just get ready to relax. And if someone wants to dim lights, we can. I don't think we really have to, but a lot of people seem to enjoy that, so we'll go ahead and do that. I'm not used to talking this much. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and relax. So go ahead and just get comfortable. If you need to stretch, go ahead and stretch. If you need to move around, set your feet where they're most comfortable, set your hands where they're most comfortable. And we'll take a deep breath and let it out slowly. And then we'll take another deep breath. And again, slowly release and relax. Good. As much as you can, imagine that your body is falling asleep, but your mind is remaining alert and active. Yeah, good. Now, go ahead and focus your mind on something that feels very good. It can be anything at all. It can be something to eat. It can be the feeling of a warm hug. It can be anything that brings you joy and satisfaction. What's the most intensely enjoyable thing you can possibly imagine? Give yourself permission to indulge in this feeling now. Good. Make it as vividly real as you can. Now, focus on this feeling and imagine what it would feel like if it were 10 times stronger, 100 times more intense. Could you handle it if it were 1,000 times more powerful? Oh, that feels good. Wonderful. Now, shift your focus to something you would like to experience in your life now. It can be anything at all. Christ is quoted to have said that you can ask for anything in prayer, and as long as you believe you will receive it, you will. No other terms or conditions apply. There are no limits. Imagine that the thing that you would like to have manifested is happening right here, right now, and you are in the middle of it. See now what you would see then. Hear now what you would hear in that situation. Feel it as if it's happening right now. It's important to feel the same things that you would feel once your manifestation has happened. Perhaps you would feel a sense of profound relaxation, knowing that it is finally done. Maybe you would feel elated and overjoyed, having received something truly magnificent. Maybe you would feel a sense of accomplishment, knowing that you made it happen. In addition to the emotions you would feel, it's also important to feel the tangible reality of the experience. As an example, if you wanted to manifest a new car, feel the steering wheel in your hands. Feel the vibration of the tires against the road. If you would like to experience better health, imagine that you are now doing something that you could not do before. And notice the feeling of your body as you move through the experience. I'm going to give you a little while to imagine this experience as if it's happening right now before I bring you back to the room. What a wonderful sensation. Okay, we're going to go ahead and bring everyone back here to the Coptic Center, into this room. Remember what it's like to be back into your body. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. And from this point, the only two things left to do is to trust that what you have done has already produced a result. And then stay open to divine guidance and let that direct you to experience the full manifestation. So, I'm guessing in a group this size, there's people that had wonderful experiences and some that may have had a little bit of a challenge in there. How many people felt a strong positive emotion? Okay, most of us. Okay, good. How many people felt like they were actually in that desired experience? Wow, more than I expected on that one. That's good. Okay. And how many people feel like something wonderful is about to happen? Okay, we got good ones there. Okay. Anybody want to share any comments, questions about the experience?
Just generally, it's almost like when your desire is so strong for something, you know, you just, like I said, the decision making and imagination, it's like you, when you watch a movie, you're in this movie sometimes, you imagine it, you feel it, you know, same thing with your imagination, you go there and the desire is so strong, it almost feels like there is no other way it has to happen, you know. So.
And that's exactly where you want to be, is that there's no way that this can't happen.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I experienced being a new homeowner, creating a sacred healing center. I'm there, I see the sun coming on, I see myself working on people. It's happening right now.
You know, I can see that healing center, and it's a very popular space. You're drawing people from across the country.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Central location, everywhere.
Yeah.
Like the spoke of a wheel, big medicine wheel. They're coming in and we're doing this.
Yeah.
And it's happening. Reality is happening.
Oh, yeah.
That's fun.
Good. I like that. Okay. Anything else? Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna open my email tomorrow and hit license is gonna say, I've been shortlisted for one of my songs. And then the next day, it's gonna say, I was picked. And I'm gonna get a $5,000 check in the mail in 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. Sounds great. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Well, I have a 50th class reunion coming up with a group of people that I grew up with from kindergarten through 12th grade. And most of us have not seen each other since we graduated from high school.
Okay.
And what I was imagining was joy, warmth, love, acceptance, and not all of the crud that often would go on the power plays and all of growing up together. And then people coming with those expectations, those negative expectations, but rather letting it all go back and just the joy of being able to see each other again. People we were practically born with, and then we hadn't seen each other since graduation.
That's great. Actually, to tell you the truth, for a 50th reunion that hasn't had any other contact between there, that's the only thing I would expect.
Yeah.
I don't see how anything else is even possible.
Well, that's how I'm going into it.
Okay. Bless it.
I'm going to manifest that.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm kind of looking at the time, realizing that it's been a little bit longer than I had originally planned on. So the next piece that I had originally planned, I think I'm going to just save it for the full workshop because I want to make sure that everyone gets one of the gifts that I've brought in tonight. One of the things that I have learned in this process is that one of the things that helps us get more of our prayers answered is that when we set up positive karma, there's kind of this natural tendency in life that the more good we do for other people, the more good comes back to us. And so one of the things that I like to do is anytime I'm doing one of these workshops is I bring in a little gift for everyone. And the gift that I brought in today is a CD with 4 different meditations on there that I created specifically around this material. The 4 meditations on here are focused on divine love, divine power, divine wisdom, and divine faith. And so it takes up the full CD. It's almost pretty much a full 80-minute CD with the 4 meditations. So I would like to make sure that everyone gets a copy of this. And essentially, I guess that's pretty much it here. Again, the full workshop next Saturday here at the Coptic Center, June 30th, 1 o'clock. We'll be going until about 6 o'clock, thereabouts, wherever it happens to end up. I doubt we'll finish early, but we'll finish somewhere around 6. And I guess that's it. Thank you all for being here. And I pray that each and every one of you be divinely blessed now and always.
Nice.